Right now, it's time to take a look at today's biggest news stories with Nick Ferrari, Sonia, Sodha and Martin Lewis, who's also here in his shorts. Best thoughts. Good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning, Nick.
Good morning. Good morning, Nick. Nice to see you.
Morning.
Let's start with our first talking point. Are the royals worth the money? The royal family's private royal train will be decommissioned as part of King Charles's drive to modernise the monarchy and reduce costs. The royals cost the taxpayer £86.3 million a year. Are they worth it, Sonia?
I think in a short answer, yes. But I also really agree with what the King's trying to do, which is to scale back a little bit at a time there's a cost of living crisis. He's actually been talking about this for a really long time. Back when he was Prince Charles, he talked a lot about how he wanted to scale back, reduce the number of working royals. I guess, you know, to give a sense that Britain really is getting good value for money from the royal family. So this is very much part of that initiative. I think the thing is, though, is yes, they cost us quite a bit a year. So in total, it's estimated they cost £86.3 million a year via a grant from the government, which is called the Sovereign Grant. But you've also got to look at what we get back from that. And the estimate is that when it comes to the tourism industry, the royal family generate more than £1.7 billion a year. So that's much more than the money that we're paying. And I think it really speaks to our culture and the way we're seen around the world. When you think about what's the first thing tourists want to come and see when they're in London, well, it's, Big Ben and Buckingham Palace. The monarchy is very much part of our culture. It's how we project ourselves around the world. So I think we'd be really, even though there were all these absurdities of having a constitutional monarchy, we'd really be missing something, I think, if we took it away.
What do you think, Nick? Do they need to pare it back a little bit? The latest accounts for 2024 to 25 show that the train was only used on 2 occasions, which, of course, raises questions about the maintenance and storage costs.
Yeah, I think Sonia's right. And I think we're seeing a very responsible approach here from King Charles. And it is difficult to justify the royal train. I think probably his mother, the late Queen, was rather more fond of it than he is. And quite rightly now, at times, he uses a helicopter. But let's just see the value they are of and here we are. I think we're seeing inside the royal train there. Yeah. Yes, that's so. Apparently, it's not been changed much in decor since the late 1970s. It was loved by the Queen. It has monogrammed stationery and goodness knows what, full-length baths. It's like no other train I've ever heard of. Wow. But if we now move to the reality, suspend your view of Donald Trump for a moment, whether you think he's bad, good, or somewhere in between the two. The value of a royal invitation, a state visit that Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, was able to do when he pulled out the letter that was signed by the King. This, when a country like the United Kingdom is trying to and needs to forge trade deals with countries such as the US, India, elsewhere in the world, the value that the King or the monarchy in whole has is immeasurable. So 86, I think you said, £1 million. Multiply that by whatever number for the soft power they give us. Every world leader wants their photograph taken with the monarch, whether it's the late Queen or whether it's the King. You cannot buy that sort of impact. If we couldn't have it, we'd be trying to get it. So I think it's hugely globally important.
Well, it does say recent attempts to measure the size of the impact of the royal family on UK tourism has been estimated that the capital value to be £67.5 billion, up from £44 billion in 2012.
But what's immeasurable is the fact that a Prime Minister can visit a King or a Queen and say, look, we're very keen to do a trade deal with New Zealand, with Australia, with Brazil. Is there any way I could lean on you? Possibly, would you make a state visit there? Could we invite a state visit from their Prime Minister? You cannot put a price on that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
No. Let's move on to our next story, which is all about parental leave, particularly a look at new parents. The government's going to do a review of this. One in 3 dads only at the moment takes the statutory paternity leave. Questions whether more paternity leave would help with toxic masculinity. The Business Secretary, Jonathan Reynolds, is putting this under review, Nick. What did you make of it?
Well, I struggle with what toxic masculinity actually means. I think there are different definitions. Mr. Reynolds struggled. He didn't know what the statutory pay was on paternity leave when I asked him. So he's another government minister who's come out putting forward a great package and not quite sure where the facts and figures. And I think it depends on each case, Ben, because when I had finished talking with the minister, my phones, as you can imagine, everybody starts calling into LBC, and I had a lot of self-employed dads. And I do think we have to think of that. And these self-employed guys said, look, It's great if you're working for a company the size of, I don't know, British Telecom or British Airways or whatever it might be, or indeed the government. But if you're self-employed, obviously mum's not going to be able to go out to work because she's just had a baby. And the men were saying, if I don't go to work, I'm not going to be able to buy the nappies and the baby food. So that is the reality for self-employed blokes. I think we need to be aware of that.
There is a concern, isn't there? The self-employed will always going to be struggling.
Yeah, but that's an issue with maternity leave and maternity pay as well. I'm a really big fan of looking again at paternity leave because the evidence shows that in a country like Iceland, for example, there's a shared parental leave package for new parents, and 3 months of it, it's up to a year, 3 months of it is reserved for dads. So dads either use it or you lose it. And what's interesting is that means that dads, when they go, because it's use it or lose it, many more dads ask for it from their employers. It reduces the cultural stigma. We know in the UK, for example, in some industries in particular, particularly male-dominated industries, there's a stigma attached for new dads to ask for this time off to have with their baby in the first year. So it has big cultural implications, because what it means is that most dads in Iceland, maternity leave is incredibly important, and it's mums who can breastfeed babies, for example, in the early months. But it's very good for dads to spend some time caring for their baby in their first year, a bit of time off work. And what we know is that many more dads in Iceland do it as a result of their reforms, and that in the longer term, dads are more likely to do more housework and caring for children later on in the child's life if they spent time with their baby in the first year. So no one's saying that, mums and dads are completely interchangeable when it comes to this leave, but it's a very, very good thing to look at how to encourage more men to do it, because at the moment we have a system where it's only 2 weeks. The entitlements are way less generous than for mums, and because it's dads who are often the higher earner in relationships, that mitigates against dads taking this time out.
Martin, what did you make of it?
I agree with pretty much both of what's been said. I think framing it in terms of toxic masculinity isn't the right way to go. We actually have a problem with a low birth rate in this country. And one of the ways that you improve that is you improve and make it easier in the midst of a cost of living crisis for people to be able to have children and take time off. And you also improve childcare facilities later, which is something the government is looking at doing, but there's big problems with the childcare sector about not enough funding going in. But from September this year, if you have from 9 months to school age, you will have, in England anyway, 30 hours of funded, not the same as free, childcare. But I think on the problem here, you have maternity leave, paternity leave and shared paternal leave. I think, Nick asked the Minister, I think it's £187 a week or 90% of average weekly earnings, whichever is lower. That's why
you get the big bucks. It's £187, 18 pence a week. You're absolutely spot on.
That's right. He's the People's Chancellor, Nick.
Yeah, and shorts on for a reason.
But let's contrast that to someone working normal hours on minimum wage. It's not even minimum wage money. So it is antiquated, and you can understand why people can't afford to take time off when the most you're getting, if you're only on statutory, and some firms are far more generous, and well done to those that are, is a fraction of minimum wage. And that means that fathers can't afford to take time off. The lowest earner is almost always the one going to be doing the parental leave, and our system isn't up to date. So I think, forget toxic masculinity. If we want to encourage a higher birth rate, we want to make it easier for people to have children, this needs looking at.
OK. Martin, I'm going to come to you again first, actually, on this next story. A new review has found that haggling on car insurance lands you £200 off your quote. Does this work? Can you haggle?
Well, I've been talking about it on this show for about 20 years, so I'll be honest, it isn't news for me. It isn't news for me. The insurance is the fourth. In the poll I do, insurance is the fourth best sector to haggle with. Insurance is fourth, mobiles are third, TV and broadband is second, and the big one is breakdown cover. So if you are out of contract or near the end out of your contract, just to give you an example, if I go to my data of the 50 firms most haggleable with, in third place is the RAC. People who try to haggle, 83% success rate, so over 4 in 5. Wow. The AA is also 83%, Virgin Media is 84%. Now, the classic, I tested Ben on this when we were talking about mobile haggling the other day. If you're not getting where you want to do, remember, haggling is not about, you need to give me a better deal. It's about a smile and chutzpah, charm, a bit of financial flirting, win them on your side.
Well. Did you see his eyebrows?
The key weapon, though, is
So walk away if you don't want it.
Tell them, I'm afraid if you can't give me a better deal, I'm going to have to go elsewhere. Can you put me through to customer disconnections? Internally, customer disconnections is known as customer retentions. That's where they have the big power to try and keep you. And what people always say to me is, what if they call my bluff and say you're going to leave? My answer to that is you say, I just need to check with the husband, the wife, the pet pigeon, the donkey, I don't care what, before I do it, and I'll call you back to actually cancel. And sometimes they even have quotas on how many deals they can give a day. So calling back on another day, if it didn't work the first time, you can get someone else who hasn't fulfilled their haggling quota and you can get a better deal.
Nick, Martin has talked a lot about this and he's talked us through his top tips for doing it over the years. Are you a haggler?
Oh, I am
Nick's
a haggler, but I'm a little
flirter.
I haggle for everything. But hang on a second, Martin. So I've been financially flirting with this lovely woman from Aviva or the RAC or whatever, and then suddenly I say, oh man, but then I say, but I've got to check with my wife. The flirting's over. She's seen through me straight away. The flirting's gone, man.
I mean, get with it, Nick. Maybe the fact that you've got a wife makes you even more desirable, less obtainable, and they want to go even further.
I hadn't thought
There's
of that.
a TV show in that, I think.
I think we saw
Didn't
one,
we? Open house, yeah.
Sonia, are you good at haggling?
Well, I'm feeling quite good about my financial flirting, actually, because mobile phone contracts is a classic for me. The other thing is sometimes with TV streaming services, you don't normally talk to somebody at the end of a line. But it's happened to me before where I genuinely wanted to cancel the service and I was going to do so. And then literally at the last minute, they're like, but would you like our service for half price for the next 6 months? And I say, oh, yes, actually. Yes, I would. Thank you very much. I'm going to click on continue. So, I mean, maybe I was going to cancel it, so maybe it's them with their clever marketing ploys. But, yeah, I'm a big fan of it. I guess the only thing is when you've got these sorts of firms that will haggle with you like this, is it a bit unfair on the people who, you know, feel a bit uncomfortable about doing it?
And we do, though, don't we, Martin? There's one thing, we've got about 20 seconds, but you can feel uncomfortable with the idea of haggling.
So there are lots of things you can do. First of all, actually leaving, you'll normally get a retention offer if you do leave, exactly as you said. I mean, as much as put items in your shopping basket when you're shopping online, but then don't buy them, walk away for 2 days, and they'll send you a discount code. Not every time, but they'll do that.
They do sometimes.
And also, if you're uncomfortable haggling in person, sometimes the web chat you can ask, and you can do it via that. You might find it easy to type, but absolutely, there is an issue of inequality here, especially those who have mental health issues, who have anxiety about calling or speaking to people on the phone in contact, are disenfranchised from this. We have a two-tier system when it comes to being able to haggle. I, of course, would encourage those who can to haggle, but maybe there is a bigger question, is that how it should work?
If you can do it and you can bear doing it, then usually, though, it will pay off. Let's talk more headlines now. Nick has joined us in the studio. Nick, good to have you here. Sonia's alongside him and Martin's going to stay just there.
And we're starting with some breaking news. In the last few minutes, police in the Lucy Letby case have arrested 3 bosses at the hospital where the former nurse used to work. What do we know, Nick?
Well, just to remind the viewers, Lucy Letby, of course, was given 15 whole life terms for the murder of 7 babies in the neonatal unit at the Countess of Chester Hospital and the attempted murder of 7 others. This was a 12-month period from 2015 to 2016. The story moves on today, and as you rightly say, Kat, within the last 10 minutes, 3 members of the senior leadership team at the hospital I just mentioned, the Countess of Chester, have been arrested on suspicion of gross negligence, manslaughter. Now, all your viewers will know that this is a very contentious and controversial case. There are many people who are saying that this is not a fair conviction, including former Health Secretary Jeremy Hunt, who says it needs to be reviewed. He's not saying she's innocent, but there's enough evidence. Why is he important? Because, as I say, he was the Secretary of State for Health. Many people have said there has to be more. If this was going on, other people had to have had knowledge, or there were certain systems that failed. That would point to what we understand. It's just an arrest at this time, so it's not charges, and that's how the story moves forward. This is a story that will be big tomorrow, without doubt.
Unusual as well, though, Sonia.
Yes, and it's important to say, so the police were already investigating around corporate manslaughter, which is where you hold an organisation to account. So that would be holding the hospital collectively to account. But this is gross negligence manslaughter, so it's the arrest of 3 individuals, so not hospital management in general, but 3 individuals who, you know, as Nick said, arrests have not been charged yet, but who could be held individually and criminally partly responsible for what happened there. So it's breaking. I'm sure we're going to get more information about it in the next few hours from the police force that we're investigating.
That'll be at the top of the ITV
but
news,
it's very big news.
The case is no less controversial than it. I mean, it just continues to sort of plough a new trail, doesn't it?
Well, what will be interesting, as Sonia rightly says, if we have individuals named, what it would speak to, and I'm only saying what it might speak to, this is pure speak, is that there has been failures in some kind of management or... This is what it would speak to. Yeah. So obviously it will work out. Obviously we can't speculate too much because it's now a police matter, but as I say, ITV News will be all over it, I'm sure.
Let's move on to another story, though. The Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, is predicted to slash the amount of people can save in cash ISAs in a speech later this month. Martin, ISAs is something we talk about an awful lot. You talk about the importance of ISAs from a tax-free saving perspective. Do you know what the Chancellor is going to be suggesting?
Well, I mean, it's been flagged for quite a long time that she's been looking at this. I was giving evidence to a Treasury Committee on ISAs, and this came up, and I was asked my views on it at the time, and I said I thought it was a mistake. I still think it's a mistake. Here's what is thought to be happening at the Mansion House speech on the 15th of July. The Chancellor will announce, currently, you can put up to £20,000 per tax year into an ISA, whether it's a cash ISA or an investment ISA or a combination of both. What the suggestion is the Chancellor is going to lower the amount you can put into a cash ISA, which is a savings ISA, but keep the amount you can put into an investment ISA at 20 grand. It's been discussed she might lower this to as low as £4,000 per tax year when investments is £20,000. The concept is the idea to nudge people to invest, i.e. to put their money in the stock markets and take a risk, which in the long run should outperform savings, rather than to save. Personally, I think it's a big mistake. I think this might be thought of as nudge economics. I think it's pee people off economics instead. I think most normal savers are not going to go, oh, I don't get the tax-free savings anymore, I'll shove it all into investments. It's like comparing apples with ducks. You know, they're different things to different people. We do need more people to invest in the UK. We are too risk-averse on investments. We do want people to invest in UK companies. That helps the individual and the economy. But you do it by education and encouragement and by working so people understand investment and better guidance and free guidance that's available to help people do it. This is just, I mean, this could well be winter fuel payment, PIP payments, cash ISA level cut type of controversy. I put something out about 11 o'clock last night on my social media. It's gone absolutely viral. There's a huge amount of anger about it. So if the Chancellor is going to announce this cut in a couple of weeks' time, I think, you know, it's going to be another wobbly one for them to do.
And Martin's absolutely right, Ben, because I know for a lot of your viewers, they would dream of having that amount of money. Can I put £20,000? It's a vast amount of money. But to reflect what Martin's just said on my show, it was remarkable on the radio, because I did the story in the first hour. The number of people who phoned in and were furious, and reflect the sort of anger we've just heard from Martin. They don't want to take a punt. They're perfectly happy. Risk. And the other thing, which, again, Martin might be able to speak to, how is this going to suddenly grow? If people actually don't want to invest, I would have thought it's the absolute negative of what they're trying to achieve. So, real anger on the radio.
Well, and I think the fear is, as well, is that it essentially rewards more the people who are the most financially savvy, who can afford, for example, to take advice from a financial advisor, and people who are more cautious with their money will lose out. I will say, though, taking a step back, looking at ISAs as a whole, they are a good way of getting people to save, but again, they disproportionately reward people more who pay higher rates of income tax. So actually, if you're not paying much tax because you don't earn much money, you don't benefit much from saving to an ISA. So I think if the government was going to be really progressive, it would think about what it would do to help people encourage to save perhaps smaller amounts who don't pay a lot of tax in the first place. So I think there is that element to the picture too.
Well, I would say there is the Help to Save scheme for people on universal credit that I'm a big proponent of, which actually you get a 50% bonus on what you've saved up to £50 a month. Anyone on universal credit should check that out. And I agree to an extent. If the government was saying we're going to cut the amount you can put in ISAs in totality, because actually £20,000 a year is a lot of money and people who can save in it are wealthy and will cut investing, by saying we're going to leave the investment limit, it's the wealthiest people who have investments.
Yeah.
So, but more than that, this is done on the back of lobbying from big city institutions. And what this will do is clever people, you'll still be able to effectively save in cash in money market funds and cash within stocks and shares ISAs. And this will help the big city firms and be really negative for building societies who are very anti this. Now, look, I'll be honest, I've personally told Rachel Reeves I think this is a mistake, and I've spoken to people at the Treasury. I know many of the building societies out there and some of the big stocks and shares firms are saying this is not the right way to encourage people to invest, but I think we're going to end up listening to big city lobbying as opposed to the various consumer groups and others out there. This isn't about whether you should cut the limit in totality, it's whether you should cut cash ISAs to get people to invest. I just don't think it's going to work in the way way they want.
And the politics of it. You know, this government has had a very difficult ride on a lot of issues that Rachel Reeves has been deciding on. I mean, think about the winter fuel payment. The politics of this, you know, speaking to the callers, calling into Nick's show, are going to be very difficult as well for some quite marginal savings, probably.
Yeah, interesting.
OK, taxing oysters, big mistake. Wearing your boxer shorts under your swimming trunks.
Only you could have done that. Only
Big mistake. Or fashion.
This is unquestionably, I see my teenage sons do
Do they
this
do it?
all
Do
the time.
they?
And their
I've
mates.
never heard of it.
All of their mates.
Never heard of it. It must be a
have we got any
generational thing.
pictures of?
Because my male mates do not do this.
Oh, we've got a clip.
Have a look.
Ooh.
I need to understand, what is the trend with men wearing swimsuits with underwear underneath?
Because they're mental. You don't wear underpants underneath a Speedo.
I know I do. I'm not going to be made to feel weird about this.
What on earth is going on?
You don't wear boxers underneath swimming shorts when you go swimming. You just don't, okay? That's weird.
I don't care if you're going to the swimming pool or anything. If you're wearing your swim shorts underneath, you should have your underwear or your boxers. I swear down.
So younger men usually wear underwear under their swim trunks to keep from getting chafed and to give them more support and coverage. Other reasons are to protect modesty, avoid embarrassing clothing mishaps and keep chlorine or salt water from getting into sensitive areas.
Well, that's not going to happen, is it?
the one that
Let's get the medical perspective. Dr.
Allegedly.
Sarah's been sitting on the sofa. What are we thinking about this?
I mean, this is a very odd one to be asked about, but I think on a medical perspective, the underwear is not meant to be immersed in water, and so it will dry less quickly than a normal swimwear would. And that in itself may lead to chafing, but it can also...
Mark is nodding along.
Well, no, if you go for a long run and you're wearing something and you're sweaty, that if you're wearing something that's not meant to get dry afterwards, I mean, if you haven't put the Vaseline on first, you get chafing in places you don't want it to.
Exactly. But also that moisture can increase risk of infections, things like fungal infections. So I'm not a big fan of it, unless you're not going to immerse yourself in the water. If you're just wearing it to then sunbathe, I don't,
no, they definitely go swimming with them on it.
Dr. Sarah, years of medical school that took to qualify
I'll
that
put you in
answer.
touch with my,
yes, that's amazing.
my son Jack.
Thank you, Dr.
You've met my son Jack.
Yeah, he's a lovely lad.
Have you ever wear...
But he doesn't jump
I
in the...
haven't looked at whether he... I don't know where we're going with this. Is this a courtroom? I have never examined the junior's underwear.
But he won't be seen jumping in a swimming pool without pants under his swimming trunk.
Am I the only person? I have swimming shorts, underpants, and a cricket box at all times. And sometimes pads at all times when I go in the water.
You must have a terrible tan line.
I think we should just bring the Speedo back. Why
well,
not?
I mean, if you're in France, Nick, you're getting married in France. They have very strict rules about personal hygiene around swimming pools in France.
Right, yeah,
you're not allowed to wear swimming trunks.
That's right.
You have to wear Speedos.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
You see, so the wedding, that's what's going to be.
That's why I've got my own pool.
Amazing. Thank you.
Just being slightly... The idea of chafing, most swimming trunks, they have netting underneath,
yes,
right?
That's what Jack doesn't like.
Whereas if you're wearing, like, running shorts, which have an underlayer, they have a more silky, smoother layer. Is this not that someone just needs to market the right type of shorts to these young people so they're only wearing one lot at a time?
Always thinking about money. Do you see that?
No, business.
Always business brain.
No, I'm just trying to think how we stop your son, who's a lovely boy and I know well...
You do.
Wearing silly boxer shorts.
Can we talk about chafing during the break?
Martin Lewis is branching out, the chafing-saving experts. There's an opportunity there. Thank you for visiting our This Morning YouTube channel. We upload tons of new content every single day. So hit the subscribe button, like all the videos, and don't miss out. We'll see you in the morning.